Trey thought he was used to weird roommates, but nothing prepared him for Vince. Vince moved in with a duffel bag full of protein powder, raw meat wrapped in newspaper, and more conspiracy theories than a shortwave radio. At first, it was just loud, late-night podcasting and questionable breakfast shakes. But it was not long before Trey noticed Vince's muscles flexed under his skin in unnatural ways, twitching like sacks of snakes. The whole apartment felt colder, as if the very walls were clenching. Trey tried to ignore it, but every time he glimpsed Vince out of the corner of his eye, he swore his new roommate looked less human and more predatory. With sleepless nights piling up, Trey confronted Vince about the constant noise and weird behavior. Vince's apology was oddly sincere, but during breakfast he guzzled a concoction of protein milk and pre-workout, promising Trey that a single sip could make anyone unstoppable. Against his better judgment, Trey caved. The moment the mixture burned down his throat, his muscles spasmed violently, and the room warped before his eyes. Darkness oozed around the edges of his vision. Vince's form distorted, his features swimming with shadow, his eyes like burning embers. Trey struggled to stay conscious as a new hand formed at the end of his stump, and somewhere deep inside, a new hunger began to grow. Trey woke to a pounding headache and found a fully regrown hand where there had been none. Horrified and weak, he stumbled down the hallway, drawn by an electric buzzing and muffled grunts. Vince was in the bathroom, lit like an abattoir, using a meat carver to slice chunks of muscle from his own leg, devouring it raw as the wound instantly stitched itself back together. When Vince caught Trey watching, his flesh began to writhe and pool, eyes burning with inhuman rage. Trey tried to flee, but Vince became an avalanche of muscle and sinew, his voice echoing through the apartment. "Ungrateful! You do not deserve my gifts!" With the help of his quick-thinking girlfriend Chelsea, Trey grabbed a fire axe and, in a whirlwind of blood and panic, severed the monstrosity his own hand had become. It was not over. Vince's body burst through the apartment, a roaring flood of muscle and flesh consuming everything in its path, growing bigger and more grotesque by the second. Trey and Chelsea raced for their lives, barely escaping the monstrosity as Vince's rage pushed his form past all limits. Meat and bone fused into a sprawling mass that tore the building apart. At the last second, Chelsea tricked Vince into overdosing on his own pre-workout, causing his transformation to spiral out of control. The apartment imploded in an explosion of concrete, glass, and twitching flesh. When rescue teams finally found Trey and Chelsea, battered but alive, they held each other close, vowing to find a new apartment and maybe, for once, a normal roommate.